Okay, let's go back into session. Mr. Vice Chair, we've had the opportunity to go into breakout. There was a proposed amendment submitted by the House Joint Appropriations Committee. And so I think just to kind of bring us up to speed, Lloyd, just very quickly walk through what that amendment does.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, in fairness to the process, I would just say that it's our recommendation for the CapCon bill because we haven't moved the bill in. So correct. I think the House would combine the flex and contingency fund to 11 million. We'll approve the Sheridan move of the military money. We recommended adopting the state parks projects. We recommended the level 1 and level 2 studies in the Gov's Rec. We went with Gov's Rec on the community colleges. Then we also deleted the 25 million out of the Corbett pool, it zeroed that out, authorized the university to build a law school up to 25 million, and then appropriated 12 or recommended 12.5 million out of SIPA to start that. Then approved the 2 Department of Corrections projects, deleted the $1 million for facility demolition. That was the savings account for demolition at the state hospital. We recommended approving known asbestos invoices. That's the $4 million. And then we recommended adopting in our House bill from July the Capitol Square preservation and the window dressings for in the Capitol. Then we had also recommended $775,000 to build out the Chancery Court, and recommended moving the authority to use existing fees. And this was a follow-up from our was approved in our July bill, that we would allow the Department of Family Services, the Department of Construction to use money that was set aside for renovation of the McGee building over to the Emerson building to allow DFS to move into that building.
And I think we left out one component, which was to pay for the community college capital construction. We would capture the $30 million from the 20 million that's currently in the penitentiary rebuild, and capture the next 10 million that would be at the end of this fiscal year. So a total of $30 million. And that's the one thing that we left out of that motion that I would add to that. We discussed with you, Representative or Vice Chair Hicks, but we forgot to add that in this morning. So with that, it's my understanding that the Senate would like to kind of make outline what their proposal would be in order to get a CapCon bill. And just for the whoever's listening, the purpose of this is whether or not we have a joint CapCon bill that then we can take to the body and amend from the respective houses, or we can't. And so what we want to do is try to facilitate getting a bill into the queue, if you will, and just the things that we can all agree to. So Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Co-Chair. So let's walk through. I think that so I'll just go through the flex fund. We'd agree with the 11 million. We would agree with the military, Army National Guard. We'd agree with that. State parks, we're okay with the 5.5 or 5.45 with the footnote for the 3 million for Hot Springs. No on the Wyoming Territorial Prison for the outhouse or the restroom facility. Yes for the motorboat gas tax. We'd be okay with the Quebec one. Level 1, level 2 studies, we're okay with. We get into the community colleges. For Jackson, CWC Outreach Center, Northwest College Student Center, LCCC, RAC, Sheridan Gift, Sheridan Technical and Applied Science, NWDC Academic Level 1 and 2. We would go ahead and authorize those for use of other or private funds, but with no state aid, but go ahead and authorize the projects. So if they've got things they could move forward with. The next one would be the Western Wyoming College Mechanical Repairs. We would accept the governor's rec on that. University War Memorial and Corbett, consistent with the junior colleges. We would go authorize the projects, but it would have to be with other or private funds with no state aid. Women's HVAC Center, level 3, we would agree with that. Wyoming Honor Farm demolition, no. WDH is no. State facilities construction, the $4 million, yes. Capitol Square, no. Capitol Square for LSO, no. Chancery Court, yes. DFS McGee Building, no. And we have not had a conversation on the prison pension account, but depending on where we end up, if for some reason, I think if we needed to balance a CapCon bill, that would be certainly something we may want to look at if there was insufficient funds in SIPA to cover those costs. So, Mr.
Larry,
Co-Chairman.
I do have a question on the Capitol Square. If you look at the language in the July bill, in addition to funding those projects, it was establishing a working group committee that allows the legislature to have part of the essentially a say in the maintenance and operation of the Capitol Square. And so, are you good with that component of it and just not the funding?
That's correct, Mr. Co-Chair. We would accept the language, but not the appropriation for the funding. So that committee could continue its work.
Yeah, it's creating a new committee because the other one basically disbanded. So, okay, thank you.
I think we're good with that.
Questions for the Vice Chair, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, for those listening, I want to be clear, Senator Hicks, the prison account is not a pension account. It's a prison savings account to rebuild the penitentiary in Rawlins. I don't want people to think that we were taking money out of a pension account. It is a savings account to rebuild the penitentiary. Also, I had mentioned to our side, and I would offer an amendment to this, and that is for the continuation of the Casper Office Building Task Force as structured in the 2018 bill to continue with its work.
Till the building's completed, is that correct?
Until the building's completed. And with that, I would ask for $10,000 for non-legislative members and $10,000 for legislative members. And I would just offer that most of, if not all of that, will revert as the legislative members or Casper folks that have all been waiving their per diem and wages and whatnot. The reason to have it in there as a placeholder is if there is a need for members to travel to Cheyenne or Denver to look at finishings and stuff like that, just to make sure the project turns out appropriately.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Yes.
I thank you, Representative Walters, for catching my faux pas. I certainly would not want people to think that we were raiding a pension fund anywhere. So that was a tongue tie. But I think as we go through, certainly those other things seem, at least to me, to be reasonable. We can discuss those at the Senate as we move forward.
So here's the situation. It's going to take a majority of both sides in order to have any CapCon bill. So if we walk through these individually one by one, we're going to be right back to where we are right now, I presume. And because we all understand what the House wants and what the Senate wants, I would basically instruct, and I would take a motion to adopt the Senate's position and everything that the Senate has agreed to in our position. And that will become the CapCon bill that will come out of here today. And that any amendments to that CapCon bill from our side will happen when we, from the House side, or in the event that we may bring the bill back up in the interim and before the session. Because I think we've hashed it. We're kind of in almost the same position we were in July, and almost in the same position we were almost back in March. And so understanding that to be the case and not wanting to scuttle a CapCon bill for the things that we need to do, I would just recommend that we take that action. Mr. Vice Chair, what's your thinking?
Mr. Co-Chair, I think that's sage advice. I think that's something that we would support.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
go ahead. Is there anything else we missed on this that we need to discuss?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Larson first.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask the good Vice Chairman from the Senate, some of the discussion, I'm trying to understand why we wouldn't shift the funding from the McGee building over to the Emerson building. We approved that in July. Has something changed since then that we feel uncomfortable about? We're just trying to move some agencies into facilities and get rid of some lease space, which is hard to find.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, Representative Larson, could you just, would you walk us through again and any cost analysis that you have? Is this a good investment?
So
give us a little more information. I think that's the biggest thing, is we're lacking information.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
So going back to when, to the point of, so going back to when the idea initially come up to look at the McGee building, we had then Director Del McComey come up and look at their existing lease space, and then go look at the space that was up at the, and we looked at a number of buildings that were vacated up there, and we looked and had him then at Department of Construction look and see if it made sense to repurpose one of those buildings, bring them out of lease space and put them up there. They came back and said, we agree to do that. I think the appropriation that we approved for that was 2.1. We'd done some asbestos mitigation and stuff ahead of in that McGee building as we prepared to move forward. As we got the documents ready, put it out to bid, the bids just came back too high, and so we aborted that. Then the Department of Health, or the Facilities Life Resource Center, came to us this last spring and asked if we were still looking for a place for DFS. We indicated that we were, and they said, well, we will be vacating this building that they're currently using, and it's got new windows, it's got new roof, it's got a number of things there. Would that work? And so we brought DFS up, and the idea was to consider putting DFS and the highway patrol up there, and that's still the plan. And so then we brought the Department of Construction in and says, because we've got to make some rooms, we have to do some stuff up there, make a parking lot. Do we have enough funds left to take care of what it would cost to do this? They'd done that analysis. Director Schmidt, after she must have been listening, but she came back and said the Department of Construction's proposed cost or estimated cost was 1.7 million, and they had sent us email saying that they that it was worth pursuing because it would it was cost effective. So
What are we, Mr. Co-Chair, what are we currently paying out in leased buildings in Lander?
So I've been trying,
I've been trying to find that. We have lease in Lander and also in Riverton, and I think this was going to combine those.
So we've
But it-
got workforce services, parole, Department of Family Services, the highway patrol, state parks.
Is that in Lander or is that in Fremont County?
No, this is in Lander. I'm just thinking of the ones that are in Lander. And those are the ones that we have that I can write off the top of my head. How much we're paying, I know that how much we're paying for each of those, I can't tell you that.
My recollection, it was close to 800,000 a year. It was a big number. But what we can do, Mr. Vice Chair, is we've just got to go back and get all those records, and we'll make them all available to you so that when this bill comes back, we'll have the whatever numbers that exist, and we'll have them updated so that before we vote on this bill and before you vote on this bill in session, that you'll have all that information in front of you.
Yeah, and one of the things I think would be helpful, I'd like to see the proposed, and I don't need a detailed construction budget. What I really want to find out is in that $1.7 million, if that already included, it's pretty standard to put a 10% contingency fund in there, and make sure that they've got the appropriate level of contingency for both design and construction in that budget. So I think that would be helpful too.
Yeah, we'll give you that. And generally, I think it's 2% on the contingency, or that's what it has been on these here. So, but I'll give you that. I think we've got that. So,
okay.
Sure enough. Thank you. Just curious on what this conversation was.
So with that in mind, Larry, was it all right if we leave that in CapCon, and then once we bring you the information, if you want to remove it, you'd be welcome to.
Yeah, I think we could leave it. It's a transfer for right now, but
Correct.
clearly we're not comfortable with it, but we want more information and so going forward, but we could leave that. I think right now it's just a reauthorization, but more information will be helpful going forward.
You bet. Okay, further comments, Representative Walters.
Mr. Chairman, so with that, Senator Hicks, would you be comfortable adding the continuation of that Casper Office Building Task Force in this existing bill?
Yeah, I don't know why we wouldn't. I would say, do we have an estimate on the 20K? Is that just for one more year? How long is this expected to run out?
It's through the end of the project, which is about another 2 years or less. And in the first 2.5 years, we've only expended $5,500. So it's plenty to cover it. That's why I say the majority will revert, but I'd rather have too much than run short towards the end of the project.
Yeah, I think we'd be okay with the reauthorization of the Casper Office Building Task Force and the 20K to support it.
Okay, any other, Don, please.
Mr. Chairman, the source of the funds for the 20K, SIPA or general funds?
SIPA.
That's fine. Don, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't. I think everything is relatively clear. Let me ask one. Governor's letter number 2 outlined the priorities for the level 1, level 2. You've adopted his funding amount. Would you adopt the priorities as well?
Remind me what that is.
Mr. Chairman, they listed, I believe, a whole host of level 1, level 2, starting with.
And those are, let me just rephrase that. Those are all in the CapCon bill that we just have tentatively agreed to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we can then, we really don't have to do anything with the letter, but Mr. Vice Chair, what's your preference?
I'm going to go with it. Do we have a direction, Don? Is one way better than the other?
Mr. Chairman, if you want to express a preference for those, I think it's 5 projects, we would put that in a footnote. If you just want to give them the 900,000 and go without a priority list, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, I don't think we want to adopt his priority list. I think we want to adopt our budget bill. And so I would just move that we deny Gov's rec.
Mr. Chairman, I'd sure like to, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the governor's letter. Where's the other document that I can look at to know exactly what we're voting to adopt?
We are not adopting anything at this point. We're just denying the Gov's rec because we have to respond to the letter, or we take no action, one or the other.
Okay.
So what, and there's a second by Representative Summers. All those in favor say aye, or raise your hand. Okay, that motion carries. So we will deny Gov's rec. Now, Don, I think because we don't, this is a conceptual bill, I don't know that we need to vote on it today, or do you want, Mr. Vice Chair, do you want to vote on the concept bill?
No.
I tend to agree with that. So could Don just finish the draft of the bill, and when we come back in, we'll have our vote when the joint JAC meets next.
Okay.
So that leaves us now with any round robin. And before we do a round robin, Vice Chair Hicks, would you like a breakout, or what was your preference?
No, Mr. Chairman, we had we had a couple of agency that we talked about calling or doing not open them up, but going back into the budget. There were some corrections that I think different members wanted to make. Do we want to do that now?
Sure.
So I believe for us, we had Senator Grew.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I asked the co-chair, I don't know, I'll make sure I do this right because I've already done it wrong once, so I don't want to do it wrong twice. Not that senators are ever wrong. I'm just a little short on being right, I guess. Do you need to make a motion to reconsider? Can we just open something back up and make a change?
You can just open it up.
Okay. I would like to open up Department 103, Commission on Judicial Conduct and Ethics. And yesterday, I made a motion to lower. In my sheet.
Yeah, we're with you.
Yeah, I made a motion to lower that amount on the 100 series. And I would just like to reverse that. I just had some erroneous information. Just wanted to make a correction there. Just put that money back.
Agency number?
103.
Does everyone understand the motion?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, raise their hand. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Any other motions? Any other motions? Representative Summers, you have any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't at this time. Department of Education maybe later, but that might take till session to figure out if I want to correct any of that.
Do we have any motions on any Department of Health or?
Mr. Chairman, would you consider this our last discussion on the budget? Are we doing a round robin in another 10 minutes, or what is the approach here, sir?
So, yeah, that's my question. If there are any other motions for a round robin, I think essentially what we're going to do is delay round robin at this point in time for any additional motions, unless any individual member has a desire to bring back any of the motions that we passed in terms of the activities that we've taken this week.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a breakout?
Yep, let's do that. Don?
Done.
Mr. Chairman, like I indicated, we have about 7 amendments that have been asked for from us. Do you want us to email those members to remind them of it, or they know it?
Yes, please. Just remind everybody.
Thank you.
Copy us all.
Okay, round robin. Don, are you there? I'm giving you a call, all right?
Yep.
Karen, if you're there, can you let me back into the Senate break room?
Mr. Vice Chairman, yes, I am here. You have the option, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should
Yeah.
have a little icon that says break room or breakout. If you click that, you'll be able to join your colleagues.
I do not see that icon. Oh, there it is. Yep, I've got it. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
So while we're waiting, Tom, you want to give Don your motions just so he's got it?
Certainly. Don, what my motion will be is in, I believe I'm doing this right, in Agency 27, Capital Construction, to add a footnote to reconstitute the Casper Office Building Task Force as it was done in 2018 with the same duties and everything laid out in that original creation. And with that, there would also be a $10,000 appropriation for non-legislative members of the task force as laid out in that previous. And then I would do a section 300 for $10,000 for this for the legislative members so as not to have the executive branch paying legislators.
So just in essence, it's protecting it in case we don't get a CapCon bill.
Absolutely. Same thing we're doing in the CapCon bill, just a second way of doing it in case the CapCon bill doesn't proceed.
Fund source, SIPA, okay on both those?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Don? Thank you, Don.
So Don, I've repeated that conversation I had with you with Larry. And so we'll just kind of briefly address it when we come back, and then we'll probably adjourn shortly.
There are a couple, maybe at least 2 or 3. Fire prevention, electrical service. You haven't actually worked through that budget. There are only 3 or 4 votes there.
Okay.
And the governor's letter number 3 was revised. That was the I worked with Erica, and we are live on YouTube, so I'm cognizant of that. Representative Larson and Erica have consulted, and there is a new governor's letter number 3.
Okay.
And then finally, this one's just housekeeping, authority for staff to make technical and conforming amendments as necessary.
Okay. And now you want to have that both for the CapCon and the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Don, we're going to need to know or get a synopsis of the 27 bills we now have in JAC. How many of those are budget related? And just kind of a breakdown of and if we have a limited session coming up and a virtual session, which ones would be critical to the budget? And also which ones are more complicated or less complicated, just so that if we end up having to prioritize, we can make a good educated guess on that.
Absolutely, and we can send you the list out, and you can maybe look at sorting them. We'll go through and give you an initial sort in terms of impact.
Okay.
Albert, do we have that training on Monday? Did I read that right?
Yeah, it starts at 9, and then recal, I think, starts at 1.
Well, that's a pleasant day.
Kind of next week till past Wednesday's about like this week for me. I think we have management council Wednesday, so it's just chug, chug, chug.
We'd love to have all you guys join us for recal Monday and Tuesday.
I'll think about it, Larry.
We'll see you there, Representative. Well, and Representative Sensen will be probably listening. He enjoys that.
I'll be there.
He's into that S&M stuff, doing the sitting in there watching a recal.
Can we get somebody refresh my recollection? We're going to go round robin goes in agency order, and they're going to start with the governor and work through to 200, the 200s on their round robins. We'll take.
What we're going to do is we're going to open up round robin, do anything and any agency you want, but we're not going to go through them. Because I can tell you, I think right now the House has no round robin, so. But there's one correction or addition that Mr. Walters wants to make, but that's it.
Yeah, Mr. Co-Chair, the Senate has no round robins either.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice President Summers.
Don. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Don. Could you have staff post this meeting right after we get done, set up a Zoom for Senator Hicks, Senator Kinski, and me for a little recal discussion? Thank you.
So in essence, let's just recap, because we have the typically we have a round robin, and because of this the nature that we've been able to open the budget kind of at will. Actually, before we do that, Tom, why don't you go ahead and make your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My motion would be in Agency 27, which is State Capital Construction, to add a footnote for the reconstitution of the Casper Office Building Task Force, just as we did in the capital construction bill, and add $10,000 for the non-legislative members of the task force. And then in Section 300, to add a $10,000 for the legislative members. And the reason for splitting that apart is so that the executive branch isn't paying legislative members. It's just a separation issue that we need to take care of there. And Mr. Chairman, if I have a second on that, I would explain my reasoning.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, didn't we already agree to that?
Yeah, let him explain. Just 1 second. Go ahead, Representative Walters.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose for doing this is in the event that the capital construction bill were not to succeed in a upcoming session, the Casper Office Building Task Force does good work in making sure that the elected folks in the Casper community are able to have an impact and a say on the project that's taking place in Casper. And we've been doing this in all of our local communities because it's the elected members of the community that the citizens come to wondering what's going on, and having them involved is quite important. And so this just makes sure that if in the event of a capital construction bill that is unsuccessful, that the Casper Task Force could still proceed.
Is that all right with the Vice Chair?
Yeah, just a quick question on that. So part of that was attached to that Chancery Court in the CapCon. The way that was worded was a footnote to the Chancery Court, is the way I recollect, Dawn. Is that correct, or was it a separate footnote?
Mr. Chairman, I think they were separate footnotes. I think.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So this would be the exact same thing that's currently in the CapCon?
Mr. Chairman, that is my intent, just reconstituting what we created in 2018 when the project was first initiated.
And just to clarify that, what's the sunset date on this, 2023?
Mr. Chairman, it'll be sometime in 2022, but I'm leaving it open-ended to call it the end of the project. The estimated completion date on the building is first quarter of 2022, but if anyone has ever been a part of construction, things don't always end right on time. And so we're just leaving it open-ended to the end of the project.
Okay, Mr. Co-Chair, just to follow up.
Please.
I'm a little bit reluctant to just say the end of the project. What I would like to do is use in building terminology is when the project's substantially complete. In other words, if we got to do a little window dressing here down the road, while it's in the major construction complete, it's just a term used in the building trades is when something's substantially complete. We could use the example of the the windows and the Capitol would be something that's not complete. I just want to know that at some point in time that we don't have a committee resurrected to look at windows and furnitures and all of that stuff. So would that work, Representative Walters, if we inserted the word when it's substantially completed?
I think it sounds fine. I guess I don't know the difference between substantially complete and complete. Substantially complete, are we going to stop 98% of the way and then stop having it? And so I realize that it's a bit of an open-ended timing date instead of saying definitely July X or something to that effect. But Mr. Chairman, I think by saying the completion of the project is, to me, as definitive as substantially complete.
Well, I understand the term of art, and I think that's fine, Mr. Vice Chair. Plus, it's in the budget bill, so it's going to die no matter what in this location. So, okay,
that's fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
So Mr. Chairman, clarification, is it going to be in two places, in the CapCon bill and in the budget bill, or just in the budget bill and not in the CapCon bill?
2 places. So Don, sometimes we put in language that it says if it doesn't pass, if it doesn't come out of the CapCon bill, then this is in effect. So would you incorporate that language in there? That's typical.
Absolutely. And the primary, as I understand it, is the CapCon, and the secondary is the budget.
Correct. Representative Stiff.
Mr. Chairman, just a brief question. I think this was said before, but this 10,000 and 10,000, it's split. The sources are different funds. One, could you just go over that again so I got the source of funding straight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The funding source is SIPA for both. It's the funding location when it's in the budget bill, because state construction procedurally should not be paying legislative members because they're an executive branch function. So we put it in the section 300 for this component, and I may not be describing that perfectly well. The funding source is the same. It's just a matter of where it's located to make sure it gets allocated appropriate or goes out the door properly, you might say. In the capital construction bill, it's all SIPA, and because it's the capital construction bill, there isn't the same concern that there is in the budget bill.
Okay, any further discussions regarding the budget bill? So Don, if you would, why don't you recap for us? And what I'd like you to do is put this in a timing sequence of what your office does next. Because we have essentially a CapCon bill or a budget bill now ready for you to craft, as well as a capital construction bill for you to craft. And so talk about the timing and how long this is going to take you. What we don't want to do is overburden you and your staff over the Christmas holidays. So just give us in a nutshell what this looks like, what you anticipate with what we've given you, and where is it going to leave you come January 12th and thereafter.
Mr. Chairman, happy to. I think there is a motion on the table. Is that disposed of?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Is there also in favor of Representative Walters' motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Those opposed, that motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have your direction on a number of pieces of legislation. The legal staff will work diligently for preparation of the bills requested during the budget hearings. Your budget fiscal staff will begin drafting both the capital construction bill as well as the budget bill either this weekend or Monday. And we will have that in good order for the beginning of the session. We will also, Craig is anticipated to meet on January 5th We had anticipated to release that on the Thursday after the session begins. That was our traditional format. However, we recognize that folks may want to have that available on January 12th when you gavel in, and we will endeavor to do so. Keep in mind that January report is just an update. It's not as voluminous as the October report. So we expect to have all three of these budget fiscal products for you. I should also mention that we'll, of course, do the local government one, and we have the new data book that will be released around this same time as well. So several new products for your consideration. The concern or consideration, I would say, is in the event that the new committee desires to meet again, the extensiveness of additional changes. If they are modest, and I can't come and say, 8 or 12 or 15 specifically, but if the revisions are manageable is perhaps the best way to describe it. We can turn that around along with a cheat sheet in 2 weekends, something like that. If they are extensive, meaning dozens of changes to the budget bill, that puts some pressure on when we can have a bill. On a typical general session, we would take 2 weeks during your session to write the budget bill and the supplemental budget bill. So that's kind of the balance here is if the new committee gets aggressive with additional changes. For example, your committee has adopted about 68 amendments. If you do that again, we kind of have to start the process over in terms of preparation of the summary sheet as well as the bill.
Our intention would be that we'll have to see the bill, and as soon as we have the opportunity to review the bill, and as soon as after we have convened, we'll schedule a JAC meeting to walk through the bill, and then we'll have that discussion on amendments on that bill as we walk through the bill, and we'll proceed from there. And we will endeavor as much as possible, and we'll work informally between the vice chairs and the chairs to ensure that we don't overburden you, particularly if we come into session sometime the first week in February. So you'll have our commitment for that, Don. So then similarly, that will happen with the CapCon bill. So we'll review that at the same time. We'll need an explanation. If management limits the number of bills that we can bring, and so we'll request that you kind of prioritize those for us. Let us know what is reasonable and what's needed in order to adopt the budget. And so that we can, once again, not create too big of a workload. And if it happens that we're in a virtual session in those first weeks in February, that we don't overburden the legislature with too many bills. So we'll work through that as we go forward. And it's like everything else with our COVID environment, we kind of have to adopt on the run. And so, Mr. Vice Chair, with regards to both the budget bill and the CapCon bill, I would request the committee to give the LSO the leeway to make any necessary technical corrections and just wording, semantics, that kind of thing to make the comply and read as best as possible. And is that all those in favor of that, please raise your hand. So go ahead with that, Don. And then I'm trying to think, do we need to go in and do 041?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you tabled that. There are 3 units in agency 041. You wanted to wait until you had an opportunity to visit with Director Reed this morning.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I think what we need to do is, we talked about having him coming in and rework and just kind of walking us through that when we reconvene in January. But until that time, I think it's probably incumbent on us to at least finalize it so that it can be drafted, and then we can modify it based upon any actions that we take in January. So with that, I would reopen 4041, and Don, why don't you just take us to the agency?
Yes. Agency number 041, Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety. Your first unit appears on page 12, Administration Unit 0101.
Any amendments? Next, please.
Page 17, the unit is Electrical Safety 0301.
Any amendments? All right, seeing none, please proceed.
Page 23, the unit name is Electrical Fees, Unit 305.
And with the understanding that this is going to be addressed by the agency when it comes before us in January, are there any amendments at this time? Seeing none. Don?
Mr. Chairman, the two outstanding items, if you wish to address either of them. One did not take the form of a formal recommendation, but it was the $7 million transfer that the governor makes from the SCCA account to SIPA. Given your action on the state capital construction, you reduced the obligations of that fund. That transfer is no longer necessary if you wanted to deny that request. It's your
Chairman.
Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I move to deny Gov's rec.
Does everyone understand the motion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That motion passes. Don, next.
Mr. Chairman, the last item is that is on our list is the governor's letter number 3. I mentioned had been worked with Representative Larson and staff of the governor's office. It should be in your email. It was actually just delivered to us while you were in your most recent breakout session. They revised the last paragraph in particular, which provided funding at the 2019 student count level, and they did not include the comment on the ECA increase in the per student amount. I believe that's the intention.
Okay, just a quick explanation.
Well, can I, where is governor's letter number 4, Mr. Chairman?
This is a revised number 3. It was in Karen's email. If you can pull it up, you can see it.
So Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So if I may, so you'll recall when the governor's office was explaining the child count situation, they also included an enhanced amount, assuming that we had adopted an ECA for the kids. The governor in his letter denied that. And so it was an error on their part. And so what we've done is just deleted all reference to the amount, and we says the child count is the same as it was in 2019, and it will be at the amount that it is, which is would be an accurate reflection on what needs to happen.
So in essence, we're now, as modified, we'll by adopting the Gov's rec, we're just complying with.
So the necessity, the reason for the letter is every December we have a child count that comes before us, and then we adjust appropriations based on that. The last couple of years it's been pretty flat. This year, the child development centers took some budget cuts in step 2 and step 3, but then they also had when the child count came through, they had a reduced child count, and so the governor, in an effort to soften the overall impact, says let's leave the child count as it was in 2019 rather than reducing it to reflect. And a lot of the reflection of, or the reduction in child count is related to COVID.
Yeah, they just didn't show up.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The governor makes reference to this would slightly augment the EIEP services. Do we have an estimate of what the dollar impact is on on our budgetary situation here. I'm not seeing any dollar figures in this letter. Not that I'm opposed to it. I just would like to know how much it's going to cost.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, what you could do then is go back and look at the per child count amount that's been provided to you and take that times the amount of the child count as it was last year, and that would tell you on your own calculations how much that is, and could compare that to.
Don, we have those numbers. It's the 10,000, and then from this year, and then what was the prior number?
No, 10,000 was the proposed amount that was denied. It's 9.
That's what I mean. So it's not the 10, it goes back to the 9.
And
with the revised child count.
I move that we adopt Gov's letter.
Any further discussions? Been seconded. And we'll get those numbers to you, Dave, just because we need to see them as well. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That motion carries. Okay, Don, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, we have a clarifying question. And this was on a motion from yesterday. We interpreted the action in the Supreme Court delaying the Chancery Court delayed the money, but not the positions. Was that your intention? And the reason we ask is they actually cut 2 positions in their recommendation, but the motion as we heard it allowed those positions to be retained. We're just looking for clarification there.
So I think we gave them the authority to create the positions on a need basis, isn't that right?
Well, there are 4 positions, I believe, on that. And they're proposing to give back 2 of them.
So,
if you have anything to comment, please jump in.
Yeah, and walk us through the funding. And whether they have them or not, they only have so many dollars that we gave them.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right. So you cut their funding about in half, maybe a little bit more than half. So you restricted the available resources. And our question was whether or not we let those, and it will be unfunded positions, remain or take those unfunded positions.
So I don't know that it makes any difference. Does Mr. Vice Chair, does the body have a preference?
Mr. Chairman, for the time being, I think we remove those positions. And I believe, Mr. Chairman, the intent is that they would use the district court's judges, but have staff to augment those district court judges. It was a discussion.
Chairman.
Senator Kinski.
As I recall the discussion, and I can't remember, I thought perhaps Senator Perkins might have weighed in. I thought he wanted to have the positions there just as because at some point they're going to try and ramp up the operations. I don't know. What does our chairman want, Mr. Hicks, Senator Hicks?
My recollection with the conversation is we wanted to leave 1 position there.
Okay.
As they start to ramp up to facilitate that. That's my recollection.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, there he is.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think you want to leave at least 1 of those positions. The difference being the district court judges will do it, but the clerks of the district court will not act as the clerks of the Chancery Court. Those will be under the Supreme Court. And so initially, the hope is they would just simply task one of the existing clerks of court to act as, to designate that person to act on behalf of the Chancery Court. But as that ramps up, you may need you may need those staff people. You may need those staff positions. So I think the money's not there. I think you want to leave at least 1, if not 2 of those positions. I don't think it'll make any difference But, you know, we might be pleasantly surprised and we may find the Chancery Court ramps up faster than anyone thinks.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Mr. Chairman.
with that testimony, I would suggest we leave 2 positions and take out the other 2. That is seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That motion carries.
So what I heard is we're hopeful for a spate of business litigation. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. From all out-of-state companies. Representative Larson?
So, Mr. Chairman, I went back into the Department of Health's budget and calculated the information for Senator Kinski. There is 256 less children in child count this year, and if you take that times our existing rate per child of $9,718.08, the impact, if I understood you correctly, Senator Kinski, is $2,487,828.48.
Ogden, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not Ogden, but I can hear you.
We can all hear you.
We can't see Ogden though.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Larson. That's greatly appreciated. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other actions?
Mr. Co-Chair?
Please.
I'm going to have to jump off of here right now. I'm going to turn the Senate over to Senator Kinski, and if we do need to vote on anything, he has my proxy. I've got to jump on with our chief clerk, and so take care of some issues with the Senate right now.
Okay, I think we're going to adjourn, Mr. Hicks.
Well, I think the only thing left is to move the budget and vote on it.
We can't do it until we see the bill. So we won't take a vote on the budget bill at this point.
Mr. Senate Chair, is that what you want to do? Well, he's gone. We're left hanging.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to vote on a bill that we have no, we've just got to read it. So any other action before we adjourn?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Kinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we got to say goodbye to Chairman Bebout this morning, but I thought we ought to acknowledge the hard work of Senator Agar, Representative Summers, and Representative Olson, who are also leaving us, and then the hard work of Senator Steinmetz and Senator Perkins, President Perkins, and then also Representative Stith and Simpson, who have been with us all week. So just say a big thank you to all those folks.
Yep. And Mr. Chairman, I'd request that Senator Agard send us a picture of his pen of heifers and this year from the stock show. That's probably the highlight of last year's session. And good luck.
Well, thank you, Representative. Unfortunately, the stock show in Denver has been canceled, and so we turned the cattle out for this year, and we're going to do a family vacation for a change.
Good for you. Thanks, Wyatt.
All right, Don, any other business we need to do today?
Well, I think we need a big shout out and a thank you to staff, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah.
They are just tireless.
All those smiling faces we see.
And I'm in awe of their ability to keep track of all that needs to be kept track of and of us, and greatly appreciate it. And Don, when Chairman Nicholas said that he was hoping not to burden you and the staff too much over Christmas, he still wants you to keep bringing your own coal for heat. That's the kind of guy that Bob is, you know. But we really appreciate all your efforts, and Merry Christmas, and God bless you all, and stay safe in Cheyenne.
Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will send out a list of all the bills, not only to the chairs, but to the members, just so you have a sense of what to expect going forward. With that, I have nothing further.
I kind of remember one other time when we had about 25 bills.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
Senator Perkins here. Just wanted to make sure that the instructions, I think, were clear from the committee, that we didn't want any Bob Cratchit LSO fiscal and budget clerks in over, burning the midnight oil and having to be in by 10 o'clock on Christmas Day. So,
that's right.
so anyway, it would just everyone have a Merry Christmas. And again, thank you, staff. You always make us look good.
All right, everybody. Merry Christmas, everybody. We will stand adjourned.